Hello to everyone at home. I'm here with the director of La Fortaleza. If you would kindly introduce yourself for us.
Nice to be here. Hello, everyone. My name is Jorge Tilen Armand.
Wicked. So, I'm like a huge fan of your film, and I'm so glad that you're here. Um, First question to kind of about because I know it had to do with a bit of the basically market collapse and like how that impacted Venezuela. So can you kind of speak, and then also I feel like there's a personal story there as well. So can you speak to why you were called to make the film, and also like kind of maybe from like both a socio-political lens and also from your own like background, like why you might have been called to go about making this film?
hmm well, there's been a crisis happening in Venezuela now for almost 2 decades, and that has driven the country to unprecedented levels of an economic crisis that now has turned into a humanitarian crisis, which has pushed 6 million people to leave the country, which is 20% of our population, or the size of the population of Denmark, to put in perspective. Um, and well, so because of that, I left when I was 15 years old, and making movies in Venezuela has been a way to go back, a vehicle to go back, spend some time there, reconnect with my roots, and try to understand what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
My movies are deal with family issues of my own family, and they kind of straddle the line between reality and fiction, and this one is no different. La Fortaleza is inspired by my father's real life stories of living in the Amazon jungle in the 90s, where he tried to build this tourist camp that didn't happen in the end because of all these economic problems that were happening. And he stayed in the jungle uh, for a couple of years, where he was around in the illegal gold mining world, and he was dealing with problems related to alcoholism.
Right.
And so, taking that, I asked myself, with my co-writer Rodrigo Michelangeli, what would happen if my real dad in contemporary Venezuela today returned to this abandoned tourist camp to try to rebuild it.
Mm.
So the movie kind of starts off from that question, and the movie is about this man, my dad, who plays himself in the film,
Very talented actor, by the way.
and it goes there to rebuild this and deal with his demons.
Um, when you speaking of demons, one of the things that I found the most startling about the film is the cinematography. It's incredibly arresting, visceral images, and so I'm wondering if you can speak to your approach to the cinematography, as well as like kind of your relationship with your cinematographer.
Well, my cinematographer is Rodrigo Michelangeli, who's also my co-writer and one of my producers. So we've worked, very very closely together on this film, like since the moment that we had the idea together.
Right.
Um, and I mean, where can I start? I mean, it was a long process, to put the film together, to write it, to develop it, to finance it, and along the way, the the movie developed into what it is right now, no? But speaking about the cinematography, we like the choices that we made in this film have to do a lot with the fact that the people in front of the camera are non-professional actors. My father's not an actor, and neither is anyone else in the film.
Right.
So everything was done in service to kind of get the naturalistic performances that are there. Meaning that's why the movie is shot mostly handheld or on Steadicam, so that the the cinematographer can be with the actors, following them, and they have a freedom. Um, so we didn't give like any marks as you normally give actors in a movie, that you say like go walk from here to here, you stand here, and then you look out the window.
Right.
I directed the movie in a way that it's like, okay, so at some point in the scene, you might walk over to the window and you might look, and there isn't a precise way that the camera is gonna go from here to here. but more kind of just feeling it. And of course, it helped a lot that Rodrigo was the co-writer, no, because he knew the story. He knows me. We worked together in the previous film, so we have a kind of way of communicating that is very ingrained in the way we work. Now, sometimes I would whisper in his ear, like, you know, get wider, or go this way, but
Right.
sometimes he just knew, no.
Right.
And the movie it's a movie that is not doesn't rely on the narrative so much, but there's also a thing of atmosphere and a thing of admiration for the landscape that
Right.
is all put in there.
I wonder if you like. I didn't send you these questions before because you're like literally reading my mind. When it because then my next question pertained to the landscape. So it's really lovely to hear that you kind of just wanted to watch life happen because and like you adapted. It sounds like you adapted to what's presented to you. If you're not working with professional actors from a filmmaking standpoint, when the world changes, you adjust. And like it had such a wonderful impact on the film because like that was one of my favorite things about the film was like how quiet and like how I kind of just like felt like I was like I don't want to say intruding, that's the wrong word, but like feel like I'm just watching something happen and like it would have happened without me being there and I would have been okay with that. Um, I guess my next question is when it talks about the landscape, if it's the Amazon, it sounds like a logistical nightmare if I'm putting it frankly. So, and kudos to you for being able to do it. So, can you speak to filmmaking in the Amazon and like the challenges, how you did like I'm curious about the obstacles, but also just kind of like your approach to shooting in the Amazon.
Well, that was an adventure, the biggest one of my life so far, for sure.
Mhm.
um, we not only was it filming in the Amazon, it was filming in the Venezuelan Amazon. While there was like a wave of protests and electrical blackouts and fear that Maduro was going to get toppled,
Oh my God.
and like they closed the airspace and we couldn't fly into the jungle because the location where we shot was it's a place that there's no roads, so the only way is to fly, and that increases the cost of the film. You have to fly everything in,
Right.
everything from the crew, the equipment, the food, everything. um,
Mm,
and that, of course, is a logistical nightmare. And when we shot the first part of the film in Caracas, in the city, and then we like had 2 travel days to drive to the southern city, and we
right.
trucks with food for a 48-day shoot in the jungle were driven down. And then in that moment,
How
the
many
the
days? 48 days? You had 48 shoot days.
48 days of shooting, but we were there for 7 months with pre-production and other hiccups that we had in the
Wow.
jungle. So it was really tough. And so, to finish the story, when we drove to that southern city, that's when, if for anyone that remembers what happened recently in Venezuela, that's when the humanitarian aid was getting sent through the border of Colombia, and there was
Mhm.
like these concerts that happened in the border. So the government decided to like close the airspace because they were afraid that the army, like people in the army, were gonna turn against them, and they were gonna fly planes
Right.
that would potentially take them out of power. So then we were stuck in this hotel, and the trucks that were there with food, the electrical plants failed, and all the food rotted.
Oh my
And
God.
we arrived to the jungle only with the grains and the meat that was like frozen but like made it. So we didn't have any like fresh, vegetables, cheese, all of that, but was spoiled. um and we had many things like that. We had a boat that sank in the middle of a river at night, and with all the equipment, and we lost this, and these lenses got wet, and it
You're
was it was it was crazy.
you had a boat sink. How are you still standing here today? Well, I just
Well,
oh
and on top of that, my dad, he really was recovering from alcoholism
right,
when we were filming the movie. So he wasn't the easiest actor to wrangle, let's say.
right, right.
Yeah.
Wow.
uh, and yeah, you just do it. Some locations we had to walk with equipment, walk for 2 hours with the tripods and the
Yeah, yeah.
cases and things. um yeah, it's a really challenging place, but it was worth it. You know, it's a privilege to be there. That place where we shot the film is a beautiful national park called Canaima,
Mm,
where there are these unique mountains that you see in the film. They're called tepuis,
mm.
that are only there in that part in the world. Um, and I'm really happy that all of that was captured in the film.
Well, I think it's a testament. If you can shoot a film in the Venezuelan Amazon in the middle of a coup or an attempted coup, um, it's a testament to the filmmaking spirit. So, congratulations. I guess my next question, because that's a lot of like that's a nice amount of shoot days. Regardless, obviously, like it was difficult, which is why I'm sure you got so many shoot days. But just to wrapping up, I guess I have two questions for you. So, firstly, like when it comes to your journey, I know this film was kind of developed with Tribeca Film Festival or the Film Institute. So, if you can speak to your time and like how that went for you, for any filmmakers out there that are curious about their kind of like how that kind of realm of like development for a feature works with Tribeca, and then also, and this is the last question, I'm kind of curious about as a filmmaker, what you were trying to say with this film, what you would like to leave audiences with. So those are the two questions about developing and like kind of in the realm of working with Tribeca, and then also the messaging of your film.
Okay. Um, yeah, so Tribeca did give us a grant. It was a grant of, I think it was 7,500 American dollars, something of the like. So they were a small part of the financing.
Oh,
The movie was financed. It was a co-production between France, Venezuela, Netherlands, and Colombia. Um, and then we had some pre-sale money from an American company is distributing the film, Breaker, who are also producers of the film.
right,
Developing the film and putting it together was kind of harnessing, turning so many stones,
right,
and it was the kind of um, a journey of itself. And that's the nature of things when you want to make a movie in Venezuela. Well, there's all the state funding there has been cut,
right.
um, and they only finance films that are propaganda films.
Mm,
Uh, and in Canada, it was impossible to get support because the film is not in English and it's not in French. So
don't get me started on that. Yep.
even though like I am Canadian and my
It is a
cinematographer
Canadian story
hires
because,
a
yep,
Canadian co-production company, all of that.
yep,
Unfortunately, we couldn't get any support. So that's why we had to go, like, to all of these places in Europe and South America to get make it happen.
right.
Uh,
That's like, and I think it's interesting though because you touch on that. Like, I don't want to say controversy. Obviously, telefilm is like kind of rejigging how they approach things that are Canadian, because we can't. If this country has been built on settlerhood, we kind of can't ignore our intersections. And so it's unfortunate that you weren't able to get support. However, I'm so like I still remember watching it, just being like, "Whoa, wow! Thank you for making this." Like, it was just such a just visual joy. I like obviously it's heavy subject matter, but like it was a long time since I'd seen something so visceral and like the images were just so vivid. And so I guess like the last question leading to that is what did you hope to say with the making of this film with this film, and if you can speak to kind of just like and if that's changed from when you started making the film to now.
yeah, definitely. I mean, whenever I've made this movie or my previous one, it's not so easy to say like, oh, this is what I'm saying, or more like want to open up some questions. And I think that the film might mean it definitely does different things to different people, and I hope that the experience of through the experience of watching a film of this film, you feel something, and that's enough for me. Like whether that feeling is sad or hopeful. For me, it's a movie about resilience and about rebirth in a way.
Mm,
Uh, but it's such a personal movie, that for me it just means a thousand different things. So yeah.
Wow. Well, like, and I feel like I get this. I'm some a nosy filmmaker because I get that. I ask this question to everybody, or a nosy programmer. I ask this question to every filmmaker, and like majority of you always come back with like, as long as it makes you feel. It's nice to know that, like, because the themes of rebirth and resilience are like so like it's just yeah. I enjoyed it incredibly, which is why I programmed it.
It's also a movie about exile in a way, you know. It's
Right.
because
I-
this character is a character that goes to the Amazon jungle in a way to find this fortaleza, this fortress,
Right.
and to exile himself from all the problems that are around him. And that world turns him around and spits him back out, and he ends up again in another fortress because he's not there with the sun. And so it is a movie about how much you can be with others, and how what that loss means of
Right.
that distance, no.
Yeah, 100%. And like it really does jump off the screen, and like I still think back to like I look away because I'm like I just like there's so many vivid like I just it's been a long time since I watched something where I had such a strong physiological response just to the imagery. The story alone was great, but so thank you for making your film, and thank you so much for sharing your time with me here. I'm so I like am whenever a filmmaker tells me about the journey they went through in order to make their film, I'm like, oh wow, like I'm just so kind of in awe to like of the filmmaking spirit that lives within you to like get it done, even though like the odds are against you. Because I think that's kind of what the spirit of filmmaking is. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for making your film, and thank you so much for having it screen at Real World.
Thank you so much for having me and inviting me. Really glad to show the film with you guys.
Yep, can't wait to see the second one.